Welcome to CinePro, where we bring your favorite movies back to life with quick recaps, hidden details, and everything you missed. The story begins with Kato, whose ship is attacked by a mysterious and terrifying sea monster, causing the ship to sink. Kato wakes up to find himself on the shores of an unknown island. He starts wandering around the island looking for someone to help him until he reaches a small, organized, and clean village. But what's strange is that it's eerily quiet, giving the feeling that it's devoid of life, until he reaches a building with the word bar written on it. He enters to quench his thirst, but is horrified by a shocking scene of a person whose lower half is severed and whose blood is being drained into a beer box. The man tries to help but realizes he's on his last breath. During this, Kato hears sounds coming from the room next to them. When he approaches, he finds 4 bloodthirsty vampires feeding on the legs of the unfortunate man outside. Kato immediately stumbles and runs out of the building screaming. His screams intensify the panic because they awaken the entire village, which also turns out to be full of vampires. Suddenly, he finds himself being chased by the entire village and surrounded. He grabs a stick and tries to defend himself. Their numbers are large, and they are strong, on the verge of devouring him. At this moment, he feels that they are about to consume him, my friend. Fortunately, a masked hero appears and engages in a fight with the vampire villagers. Although he kills many of them, they seem endless. He then takes Kato and runs until they escape deep into the forest. Later, the masked hero reveals his identity by removing his mask. At that moment, Kato is shocked to realize that the masked man is none other than his friend Ken, who disappeared months ago along with their other friends. We learn that Kato was worried about his long absence and traveled to search for them in case they needed help and to rescue them. But after what happened to him, he deeply regrets the decision. Ken explains that the island is ruled by vampires led by a vampire named Miyabi, and that their other friends are still alive and hiding in a nearby village. At first, Kato doesn't believe him and thinks he's joking, but suddenly, Ken starts experiencing pain and his eyes turn red, revealing that he has also been infected and is now a vampire. While Kato stands frozen in horror, Ken screams at him to run quickly because he doesn't want to harm his friend. Kato, seeing him in this state with red eyes and realizing it's real, runs for his life, leaving his friend behind. The scene then shifts to the remaining friends on the island, who were part of the group that came to the island with Akira to search for his missing brother. They are trapped on the island, and Akira has been training them to defend themselves from vampires and monsters. These training sessions were conducted by their trainer Ayama, who taught Akira how to be strong, face vampires, and eliminate them. At this point, they engage in a fierce battle with a large group of vampires, but Akira and the trainer demonstrate impressive combat skills. One wields a sword, while the other uses a massive tree branch. Suddenly, a gigantic monster appears and attacks Akira. Oh no! Akira doesn't know how to handle it until Ayama intervenes to help his student. Using the tree branch, he lifts Akira, who reaches the monster's head and delivers the fatal blow. At that moment, the leader of the vampires on the island, Miyabi, appears. Yes, my friend, it's him. He laughs menacingly and congratulates Akira on defeating the monster. But Akira's response is a swift attack on Miyabi, who easily blocks his strikes and declares that he could kill Akira effortlessly but doesn't want to. Instead, he wants Akira to join him because he admires his strength and courage. He tells him that if he joins, his powers will double and he'll live a better life. Of course, Akira refuses, prompting Miyabi to summon new monsters, stronger and faster than the first one, to kill Akira. Akira runs, leading them away. Meanwhile, Yuki, Akira's friend, notices that Miyabi is in her bow's range and exposed, so she shoots an arrow toward him. It almost hits him, but he catches it effortlessly, locates her position, and in an instant, appears behind her, sinking his teeth into her neck. As he begins to drain her blood, Yuki screams in pain, losing all hope. When Akira sees that his friend and love, Yuki, is in danger, he drops everything and charges at Miyabi, who is holding Yuki with one hand and mocking Akira with the other. The battle heats up, and Akira manages to cut Miyabi's body in half, only to discover that Miyabi possesses the ability of immortality and cannot be killed by conventional means. Once again, Miyabi offers Akira the chance to join him, threatening to turn Yuki into a vampire. He's about to do it when, from afar, someone secretly observing them shoots an arrow at Miyabi, hitting him in the eye. Although Miyabi is immortal, it doesn't mean he doesn't feel pain. He screams in agony. While Miyabi is distracted by the arrow in his eye, Akira seizes the opportunity to escape with Yuki. We then learn that Ken was Yuki's friend before he turned into a vampire. That's why he was watching her most of the time to ensure her safety. The next day, the trainer reveals that the only way to kill vampires is by cutting off their heads, but this doesn't apply to Miyabi. Fortunately, they discover a vaccine that could kill Miyabi, and they begin preparing a plan to storm the building where the vaccine is located. Elsewhere, Miyabi learns about the vaccine and orders his secret fighter to retrieve it before Akira can. We return to Kato, who is still running on the island and eventually reaches a small village. He discovers that Akira's missing brother, Atsushi, is still alive and is the leader of this village. Kato enters one of the barns in the village, where one of the villagers has turned into a vampire. However, the villager refuses to drink blood despite the immense pain he feels. In the end, his appearance changes, turning into a terrifying monster. Atsushi locks the barn and is forced to kill the villager to protect the rest of the innocent villagers. Kato approaches Atsushi and commends his unparalleled bravery for saving the villagers from the terrifying monster. He asks where the monster came from, and Atsushi explains that vampires must continuously drink blood to maintain their human form. Kato is shocked to discover that the entire village, including Atsushi, are vampires. Though they are not dangerous and are peaceful, the situation remains tense. Atsushi then takes Kato. The tunnel is hidden under the island. Kato doesn't know where to go now. At the end of the tunnel, Atsushi leaves him and suddenly disappears. Kato doesn't know where he went. The next day, Agara and his team attack the laboratory where the vaccine is kept. It is heavily guarded by a large number of bloodthirsty vampires. A fierce battle ensues, but as expected, Agara and his team defeat the vampires easily. Agara finally reveals himself to Yuki and protects her before the vampires can kill her. At that moment, a giant monster appears, with eyes all over its body, attacking Agara. Besides its strength, the monster has the advantage of seeing everything around it at the same time due to its many eyes. This makes it hard for Agara to attack or surprise it. The monster is not only highly perceptive, but also incredibly strong, cornering Agara and nearly finishing him off. Suddenly, his brother Atsushi appears, intercepting the attack. Agara is stunned to see his brother still alive, but there's no time to dwell on it. He regains his focus, and the two brothers team up to kill the monster. After a long and exhausting battle, they execute a dual attack and manage to kill the strange creature with one blow. Strangely, after defeating the monster, Atsushi decides to leave again. He tells Agara to stay away from him because he has now become a vampire. He warns Agara not to trust any vampires, even if they are family, as vampires are humanity's greatest enemies. In the next scene, Agara gathers his friends again and heads through the tunnel leading to the laboratory. Along the way, they encounter a new group of vampires who attack them ferociously. Fortunately, these vampires are slow and seem to have recently transformed or are not well fed, so Agara and his companions defeat them easily. They continue through the tunnel, walking a long distance until they finally reach the laboratory. There, they find another group of vampires waiting for them. The heroes, as usual, are unfazed and attack with courage, managing to kill them all. However, one of them, called Shishin, gets injured, but luckily Agara saves him before he loses too much blood. After this intense battle, they spend a long time searching for the vaccine and almost lose hope. In the end, Agara finds the vaccine that will save Miyabi. At that moment, Atsushi appears again, but this time as an enemy. He threatens to kill Agara if he doesn't hand over the vaccine. It turns out that Atsushi has sided with Miyabi and works for him. Atsushi's threats are serious, and he violently attacks to the point of killing one of Agara's friends who tries to intervene. The situation is heartbreaking, and before dying, the girl urges Agara to save the island and destroy the vampires. Atsushi is unmoved and takes the vaccine before leaving. The group prepares to leave, but hears strange noises in the next room. When they enter, they find their friend Kato, the last person they expected to see, as they had left him in their distant city. Kato explains that when they took too long to return, he got worried and decided to embark on a crazy journey to find them. He regrets his decision and fears they might have turned into vampires like Atsushi. They assure him they are still human and haven't transformed. Just as they regroup, they are interrupted by the appearance of a giant monster with a snake-like body and a human face. The monster won't attack unless it sees them clearly, so they hide and quietly make their way up a staircase. However, the monster hears a noise and spots Kato through a reflection. It becomes furious and attacks them. The intense attack causes panic, and they rush up the stairs. At the last moment, they reach the roof of the building, enter through another door, and continue moving to escape the seemingly endless place. They find themselves in a passage of an abandoned coal mine. There's a small cart used for transporting coal. They think using it might get them out faster, but unfortunately, it's old and rusty, making it difficult to move. To make matters worse, the monster finds a new path and catches up to them. Agara manages to get the cart moving, and everyone climbs aboard. The monster increases its speed, chasing them relentlessly. It throws handmade objects at them, which, while not lethal, slow them down. The monster takes a shortcut to trap them, and when they look back, they think they've escaped. However, they are mistaken, as the monster suddenly appears ahead of them, charging at full speed. With no way to escape, they are headed straight for the monster's mouth. Luckily, the rail tracks ahead are broken and elevated. Due to their speed, they leap over the monster, landing back on the tracks. The monster doesn't give up and continues the chase. Eventually, they encounter a locked door blocking their path. With no other choice, they break through the door at full speed, only to find the end of the tunnel. They fall from a great height into a lake, and the monster cannot follow them. At this moment, Agara realizes that Atsushi has fully joined the evil side and is no longer the brother he once knew. He must confront him to retrieve the vaccine and stop Miyabi. In the next scene, Kato leads Agara to Atsushi's village. Agara wants to attack and kill all the villagers because they are vampires, but Kato pleads with him, explaining that these vampires are not evil. They live peacefully and don't harm anyone. Agara hesitates and calls out to his brother. Atsushi finally appears, and a fierce battle ensues. Despite being brothers, the fight is brutal. Atsushi is much stronger than Agara, but Agara's determination gives him the upper hand. During the fight, Atsushi signals the other vampires in the village to come to his aid. At this moment, Atsushi retreats and hides in an ancient tomb. Agara follows him, and the battle intensifies further. He manages to count Akara and begins to touch his blood until he weakens and was about to lose consciousness. At the last moment, Akara thrusts his sword into his brother's eye, forcing him to move away. He easily pulls out the arrow as if nothing had happened. The fight heats up again, and they exchange punches and blows until Akara corners him, and the blows become intense and painful due to Akara's powerful punches filled with rage. A stone pillar cracks and was about to fall on him, something he didn't expect. Atsushi saves him, sacrificing his own life. The stone crushed Atsushi's lower half, leaving him beyond saving. Akara declares that he had to collaborate with Miyabi reluctantly to protect his village. Finally, Atsushi asks Akara to cut off his head to end his suffering and find eternal peace. At that moment, the villagers, Atsushi's followers, arrive with his wife, who is pregnant with his child. Initially, Akara refuses to kill his brother because he couldn't bring himself to do it. But after persistent pleas from Atsushi, his wife, and the villagers, he is forced to agree, realizing there is no way to bring his brother back. He raises his sword and, in a moment, ends his brother's life with his own hands, closing his story. Afterward, they recover the vaccine, take it, and leave. As for Atsushi's wife and the rest of the villagers, they realize they cannot contribute anything good to humanity, and that only evil comes from them. They decide on collective suicide, blowing up the cave and ending their story as well. Meanwhile, Miyabi anticipates an attack on him, so he decides to strike first. He orders his 3 daughters to attack Akara's village. These 3 daughters, by the way, are humans, not vampires. Miyabi uses them to drink their fresh blood. Shortly after, the 3 daughters arrive at the village, each accompanied by an army of vampires. They begin to slaughter everyone there, resulting in a gruesome massacre. Finally, Akara's friends are surrounded by a massive number of vampires. Additionally, Miyabi's daughters summon huge, terrifying monsters, including the one that appeared to Akara in the tunnel. Returning to the family tomb, Akara retrieves the vaccine that will enable him to defeat Miyabi. Suddenly, Miyabi appears, congratulating Akara on killing his brother, and offering him for the 2nd time to join him. This time, he tempts him even more, offering immortality and the position of his right-hand man. However, Akara resists these temptations, promising Miyabi a gruesome end. He vows to eliminate all the vampires on the island and save humanity. This marks the beginning of the final battle between the strongest human on the island and the leader of the vampires, who possesses extraordinary powers. Unfortunately, we don't find out who triumphs, as the movie ends there. And with that, the episode ends here. Don't forget to give a like and share why. Don't forget to check out the channel and watch everything you've missed, because everything you'll see is beyond amazing. Be ready, activate the notification bell, and wait for the new content. That's all.